On the 17th of October 2000, a major railway derailment occurred that would act as one of a handful of large factors which arguably contributed to both the end of the era of full railway infrastructure privatisation within the railway industry and also laying the foundations for the eventual launch of a dedicated body to investigate railway accidents in the following years, with a combination of negligence, disorganisation and poor communication resulting in a major derailment in the town of Hatfield, Hertfordshire on the East Coast Mainline. The events leading up to the incident arguably started months before the accident itself, but the sequence of events on the 17th of October specifically began at London King's Cross with an InterCity 225 set getting ready to form the 12:10 departure to Leeds, operating under the head code of 1 Delta 38. The service itself was operated by GNER, a railway operator for the railways of the east coast of England and Scotland, which operated between the years of 1996 and 2007, with the train in an InterCity 225 formation, that being 9 Mark IV coaches, a Mark IV DVT at the London end, and a Class 91 locomotive at the northern end. The locomotive operating on 1 Delta 38 was 91023. The InterCity 225 formation has a top regular operational speed of 125 miles per hour. 1 Delta 38 departed London King's Cross on time at 12:10, with 170 passengers and 12 GNER staff on board. The first scheduled stop was likely Stevenage, although this service would never reach this destination. The train journey progressed as normal. As standard with the InterCity 225 service, the train incorporated 6 standard class coaches, a standard and buffet kitchen coach, and 2 first class coaches, with first class at the rear of the service when travelling north. The passengers were settled into the journey. Both staff and passengers moved in and out of the buffet coach, being both the source of food and refreshments for standard class and where meals were prepared for first class. The service progressed, passing through several stations served only by local services, reaching speeds of up to 125 miles per hour along the route covered. Shortly after passing under the M25, leaving the wider London area, the service passed through Potter's Bar, with the next major town being Hatfield, another station only served by local services. Because 1 Delta 38 was an express service, the train was travelling on the Down Fast line, the Down referring to lines travelling away from London, and the Fast being dedicated to express trains such as 1 Delta 38. Within a few minutes, 1 Delta 38 was preparing to navigate Welham Green Curve, just south of Hatfield Station, travelling at around 115 miles per hour. At that moment, the Class 91 leading 1 Delta 38 was passing signal Kilo 563, and at 12:23 on Welham Green Curve, a catastrophic structural failure of the left-hand rail on the Down Fast line occurred, and the rail fractured and shattered under the weight and speed of 1 Delta 38, leading to a catastrophic accident that would in total only last around 18 seconds. The Class 91, alongside Coach A and B, remained railed when travelling over the fractured rail. Coach C, however, derailed and fouled the Down Fast, overhanging and striking signal Kilo 563, completely dislodging it from its base. At the same time, coaches C, D, E and F encountered the same conditions, albeit with the fracture worsening with each passing of the wheel set, exacerbating the damage. Then, Coach G, the buffet coach, passed over the fractured track, which was now severely deteriorated, and the coach derailed, followed immediately by the detachment of the bogies from the coach itself. The buffet coach then overturned onto its left-hand side, striking an overhead line equipment mast as it continued forward. The rear 2 coaches and the driving van trailer became detached from the rest of the formation as a result of the catastrophic coupling failure of the buffet coach, and continued onward before entering the derailment site and all derailing, remaining upright as the brakes and combined track and ballast friction brought them to a stop. 18 seconds after the Class 91 leading 1 Delta 38 passed over the fractured rail, the entire formation had come to a stand, with the Class 91 and coaches A and B railed, coaches C to F derailed but relatively or fully upright, Coach G derailed and rolled on its side, and coaches H, M and the driving van trailer derailed but relatively or fully upright. Immediately following the derailment, the driver and the guard carried out the necessary procedures to alert all railway operators and emergency services of the incident. In addition, GNER staff and West Anglia Great Northern staff who were in the area took steps to protect the derailed train from further collisions. The driver made use of both the National Radio Network, the predecessor to the GSMR system, alongside a GNER-issued mobile phone to get help. The guard utilised their own personal mobile phone to also make contact. Passengers were evacuated from the train by assistance of the guard, other staff, and available passengers, also now treating the downed overhead wires and related equipment as live, although the electric current was quickly lost as a result of the damage sustained during the derailment. Multiple communication systems between the essential control stations in the southern area of the East Coast Mainline were also lost, with the Cap-Secure radio system in the West Anglia Great Northern area being impacted. Emergency services arrived at the site within 10 minutes of the derailment to aid the rescue and recovery efforts. As a result of the accident, 4 passengers lost their lives, all located in the buffet coach. In addition, there were also 70 reported injuries. Following the rescue and recovery efforts, an investigation was swiftly opened as to how the rail had reached such a condition as to where it physically fractured and disintegrated under the weight and speed of 1 Delta 38. The preliminary investigation, opened on behalf of the Office of Rail Regulation and the Health and Standards Executive, found that the cause of the accident was likely the result of a rolling contact fatigue between the rail and the wheels over an extended period of time as a result of frequent heavy loads creating fractures in the rail. The rail was reassembled as part of the investigation, and it was found that there were multiple substantial fatigue cracks identified, likely a result of the rolling contact fatigue. The events of the 17th of October 2000 highlight the point to which the degradation of the track reached its tipping point and the rail failed, causing the derailment. Now that the primary cause of the accident had been identified, the attention then shifted to those responsible for maintaining the railway and the track itself. Railtrack, alongside one of their regular contractors, Balfour Beatty Rail. For the rail to be in such a condition as to fail reflects that the circumstances behind the derailment spanned quite a substantial period of time, and questions were raised as to how there was no intervention from Railtrack or its contractors to assess and address the condition of the rail before a major accident occurred. Firstly, it was found that the ultrasonic track inspection trains did not detect the rail fatigue to a significant extent, due to the angle of the fractures that were formed, though the report argues that some may have been visible and would have likely been a cause of concern if noticed. The rail itself had been manufactured in 1995 and was therefore only around 5 years old at the time of the accident. It was found that Balfour Beatty, who had a contractual relationship with Railtrack in relation to maintaining all infrastructure, track, rail and signalling in the southern region of the East Coast Mainline, should have removed and replaced the rail at Welham Green Curve at the site of the derailment by April 2000, given the fact that indications as early as January 1999 highlight how it was in poor condition. Following the grinding of the track on the 5th of September 2000, of which had been identified and applied for as early as April 1997, the ultrasonic inspection train, which ran about a month later, identified that defects in the track remained, and there should have been indications of how severe the problem with the railhead was. This should have prompted a site visit and emergency action, however, this never happened. As a result of the collective disorganisation and negligence of Railtrack and Balfour Beatty, they were unable to confidently be certain about how many similar cases of rail fatigue may have been present on the network at the time. Therefore, over 1,800 emergency speed restrictions were enforced across the network as a precaution whilst work was undertaken to identify and replace rail that was at risk of fracturing or was already fractured as a result of a nationwide track enforcement programme being subject to the enforcement of Tom Windsor, who was the rail regulator at the time of the accident. In 2003, Network Rail, who at that time had now replaced the defunct Railtrack, and Balfour Beatty were charged with manslaughter, but these charges were dropped the following year. However, Balfour Beatty did plead guilty to the health and safety related charges during the trial in 2005. with Network Rail also being found guilty of breaching health and safety laws. Collectively, both bodies were fined £13.5 million, with Network Rail being fined £3.5 million and Balfour Beatty being fined £10 million. The Office of Rail Regulation was satisfied with the prosecution that was brought upon these companies, and acknowledged that, by the time the final report had been published, the rail industry had changed quite extensively, in most cases for the better. Around this time, Network Rail created a new broken rail identification program, which resulted in the reduction of broken rails by 66%. The wreckage of the InterCity 225 was recovered from the railway, with some carriages and the Class 91 being recovered, repaired, and later released back into service. 91021 continued in service with GNER. However, just 4 months later it was involved in another accident, being the locomotive powering another InterCity 225 set, which was involved in the Selby derailment and collision which killed 4 people in February 2001. 91021 therefore became a symbol of bad luck and danger in the railway industry, and it was renumbered to 91132 during the Class 91 redevelopment programme of 2004, and was subsequently the first Class 91 to be scrapped when it was withdrawn and destroyed in 2021 at Sims Metal Scrapyard in Nottingham. Overall, the Hatfield derailment is one of a handful of railway disasters that highlights the importance of following procedures correctly, and also acts as a cautionary tale for offloading safety-critical tasks and oversight to private companies. The tragedy is arguably what set in motion the formation of the Rail Accident Investigation Branch and the launch of Network Rail following Railtrack's collapse in October of 2002, exactly 2 years and 1 day after the Hatfield derailment. The fact that these sort of accidents have reduced within the last 25 years has shown that railway infrastructure being under public ownership clearly has benefit, and it's hoped that the lessons learnt as a result of this disaster do not go to waste in the future. Thank you for watching.